I've always had a fascination with abandoned places. The kind that nature has started reclaiming, where walls crumble, floors creak, and the air is thick with the weight of time. There's something intoxicating about stepping into a place that the world has forgotten. But some places should stay forgotten. I learned this the hard way. It started with an old hospital on the outskirts of town. St. Vincent's Asylum had been shut down for decades, left to decay in silence. The stories about it were the stuff of urban legend. Botched lobotomies, patients who vanished, and something about a wing that was sealed off long before the hospital closed. I figured it was just exaggeration, the way ghost stories always are. One night, I decided to explore it, alone. The air was damp when I stepped inside, the smell of mold and rot thick enough to taste. My flashlight beam trembled as I swept it across the ruined halls. Graffiti covered the walls, but beneath the layers of vandalism, the original hospital signage still lingered. Pediatrics, pharmacy, and restricted wing. I followed the halls deeper, my footsteps muffled by layers of dust and debris. I should have turned back when I saw the first wheelchair. Its wheels rusted in place, facing a hallway that led to nowhere. I definitely should have turned back when I heard the whisper. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around. Nothing but empty corridors stretching into darkness. My mind was playing tricks on me, or at least, that's what I told myself. Then, my flashlight flickered. For a second, just a second, I saw something standing at the end of the hall. A figure, draped in a hospital gown, with its face obscured. The light steadied, and the hallway was empty again. My stomach dropped, my breathing turned shallow, but I wasn't ready to run. Not yet. Not until I reached the restricted wing. The door was still locked, but the rusted handle gave way with enough force. The moment it swung open, a wave of stale air rushed past me, carrying with it something sour. My flashlight illuminated rows of beds, restraints still fastened to the rotting mattresses. Medical tools were scattered on trays, left behind as if the staff had fled mid-procedure. And then, I saw the handprints. Dozens of them, pressed into the dust on the walls, some smeared as if whatever had made them had been dragged away. My pulse pounded in my ears. I had seen enough. I turned to leave, but the door had shut. Not just shut, it was locked. And then, the beds began to creak. A sound like rusted metal shifting, like fabric twisting. My flashlight darted from bed to bed, searching for movement. Nothing. But the sound didn't stop. It grew louder and closer. I slammed my fists against the door. "Let me out!" Then, a voice behind me, close enough that I felt breath on my neck. "You shouldn't be here." I don't remember how I got out. One moment I was in the restricted wing, the next I was outside, the asylum looming behind me. My keys were still in my pocket, my car was still parked where I left it, but I didn't leave alone. I didn't realize it at first, not until the dreams started. Dreams of the hospital, of its endless halls, of figures standing just beyond the reach of my vision, and the voice. Always the voice. "You shouldn't be here." I tried to shake it off. I burned the clothes I wore that night. I deleted the pictures I took, but nothing helped. The dreams continued. So I did what any curious fool would do. I went back. Not to St. Vincent's, but to other places. Hoping to find answers. Hoping to break whatever this was. The second place was a church. A beautiful, towering cathedral deep in the woods, swallowed by vines and rot. I had heard it was abandoned after a fire in the 1960s. Rumor had it the congregation went missing. No bodies were found. No one knows what really happened. I made the hike out there on a gray morning, clouds hanging low and silent. The trees were unnaturally still. Even the birds seemed to avoid that place. The entrance doors were gone, splintered and half buried beneath fallen stone. Inside, the pews were charred and overturned. Black soot stained the walls like fingers clawing upwards. And the altar was untouched. Pristine, gleaming with white marble, completely out of place. As I approached it, I saw the writing etched along its edge. It was in Latin. My phone signal was dead, so I took a picture to translate later, but something strange happened. When I looked at the photo, the writing wasn't there, just blank stone. Then came the singing, soft and melodic like a choir somewhere far above me. I looked up, half expecting to see someone in the rafters, but the roof had long since collapsed. The sound was coming from nowhere. I turned to leave, but the aisle stretched longer than it had when I walked in. Much longer, like the church had grown. The singing grew louder, words I didn't recognize, harmonies that turned dissonant. I ran, the floorboards groaning beneath me. When I finally reached the exit, my chest heaving, the sky had gone dark. Hours had passed, but my watch said it had only been 20 minutes. Again, the dreams worsened. I began hearing the voice in waking hours. I'd turn a corner of my apartment and see movement in the mirror. Lights would flicker, electronics would behave erratically. But worst of all, I wasn't alone in my dreams anymore. The figure from the asylum, the one in the gown, he was always there now, watching and getting closer. The third place was a school, an old elementary school fenced off and buried under weeds. It had been closed after a gas explosion in the boiler room, or so the story went. No one seemed to know the real reason. The explosion theory didn't explain the dozens of missing children. I broke in through a side window. Inside, everything was covered in dust and ash. The air was thick, hard to breathe, always twisted in directions that didn't make sense. Doors led to staircases that only went down. Classrooms were still filled with tiny desks. Some had drawings on them, disturbingly fresh. Crayon sketches of dark shapes, wide-eyed faces, children hiding under desks. I found a journal in one desk, a child's. The last entry read, "He's in the closet. We can't leave until we forget him." I didn't stay much longer. On my way out, I passed a row of lockers. Every single one was slightly ajar except the last. It slammed shut on its own. Now, I see the figure everywhere. Reflections, windows, even in crowds. No one else notices, but I know he's there. I don't explore abandoned places anymore, because the places didn't just haunt me. I think I've become a part of them. And the voice? It doesn't say, "You shouldn't be here anymore." Now it says, "You can't."